Let's talk more about this economic shift in Cuba, and I'm joined live here in Washington by Peter Hakim. He is the president emeritus of the Inter-American Dialogue. Talk to me about this shift towards private enterprise. How is it impacting the island, would you say?
Slowly, first of all. I mean, this is really, it began when Raul Castro took over the presidency in 2006. It was seriously codified around 2008-9, and then put into law in 2011. And you expect normally in a 4-year term for an economy to be turned around, and they've now been at it for 10 years and at a very, very slow pace. And reforming an economy is something like riding a bicycle. If you don't ride fast enough, you topple over. And that's the big problem there, is not the kind of consensus in the leadership, or maybe there isn't very strong leadership at all. In other words, nobody sort of can take this. I mean, it's really Raul's reforms, most people suggest. But, Fidel Castro's still alive. He sort of, in principle, doesn't like the notion of moving toward markets, toward capitalism. He's still a true believer in socialism. And, this gives life to others, hardliners, let's call them, or conservatives in the sense of not wanting to move in another direction.
How would you compare it with China? Because China, of course, once it embraced it, it seemed like it kind of took off.
Well, they embraced it. That was the thing, that they had leadership, Deng Xiaoping, and he was clearly committed to creating a market economy. He recognized this would create certain inequalities, that it would sort of alter the socialism, the communism in China. But the Chinese believed that this was the only way they were going to move and regain any kind of standing, any kind of strength, power in international affairs. And they also believed that they could maintain the governing structure that they had, the party structure. And in Cuba, the party is very different. The Communist Party in China really governs certainly the Politburo and the upper levels. In Cuba, it's really been one-man rule, one man and his brother. And now his brother is predominant, but and that's very different. I mean, there isn't a party that resolves things. These are individuals who've been, and it's something of a gerontocracy as well.
It's interesting, though, for so long, for decades, this country dealt with, if you're in the United States, you call it the embargo. If you're in Cuba, you call it the blockade. But having to deal with that, and now kind of, it's not a light switch you can turn on and off. Suddenly, things are changing. Adapting to it's probably difficult, I would think, in some respects.
I think the biggest difficulty that the Cubans have is what people call their internal embargo. Namely, if the end of the embargo is going to bring any measure of prosperity, growth, they're going to have to make a lot of changes. In other words, simple things like they have two currencies that are miles apart, that sort of have baffled people on how you sort of translate that into prices that make sense. Contracts. Right now, the state can sign a contract and then change its mind. There's no sort of processes for settling disputes. The banking system is, they recently read a survey they did of something like 30 small businesses. None of them was able to get a loan or credit from a bank. They get it from remittances from overseas. And so you have a serious set of obstacles that have to be removed, but there are interests that circle around each of these obstacles that make it difficult.
Well, we'll definitely keep our eye on it. Peter Hakim, always great to have you on and get
Thank
your
you
insights.
very much. I
Great to see
appreciate it.
If you like what you just saw, follow us on social media and visit our website, CCTV-America.com.